Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vanacha Yamuna Tera Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Radha Madhav ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamti
Reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, very needs and conquest, we should offer respectful obeisances to Krishna Narayana, Krishna, Sukha Sundari, and Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva. By that rendering of service to pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And the loving service unto the personality of God, whose praise and transcendental songs establishes the hero path.
Rishi Shonaka asked, O Sutta, the great and transcendently powerful Vyasdev heard everything from Sri Narada Muni. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasdev do? Sri Sutta said, on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at Samyaprasa, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages. In that place, Srila Vyasdev, in his own ashram, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. Due to this external energy, sorry, I missed it. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasdev compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. One in the format again. Should we go with Sanskrit verse purport? Want me to do the last one? Anartha upashamam shakshat
Vashamam Shaksha
bhakti yogam adhokshaje
Yogam Adokshaje
lokasya ajantah vidvan chakre satvata samhitam
Vashamam Shaksha
bhakti yogam adhokshaje lokasya ajantah vidvan chakre satvata samhitam upashamam shakshat bhakti yogam adhokshaje lokasya ajantah vidvan chakre satvata samhitam upashamam shakshat
Yogam Adokshaje
lokasya ajantah vidvan chakre satvata samhitam upashamam shakshat bhakti yogam adhokshaje lokasya ajantah vidvan chakre satvata samhitam. What we are focusing on is that the material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasdev compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. And the purport says, Srila Vyasdev saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead. This statement suggests that the complete unit of the personality of Godhead includes its parts and parcels also. He saw, therefore, his different energies, namely the internal energy, the marginal energy, and the external energy. He also saw his different plenary portions and parts of the plenary portions, namely his different incarnations also. And he specifically observed the unwanted miseries of the conditioned souls who are bewildered by the external energy. And at last he saw the remedial measure for the conditioned souls, namely the process of devotional service. It is a great transcendental science and begins with the process of hearing and chanting the name, fame, glory, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. But even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation of the superfluous and unwanted miseries of material existence. Such mitigation of material affection does not wait for development of transcendental knowledge. Rather, knowledge is dependent on devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth. We are reading from a chapter called Son of Drona Punished, which is an indication that this book is a continuation from other literatures. In ancient India, as with most classical civilizations, the preferred genre of communicating wisdom is epic, no pun intended. So what they do is, for example, in the ancient West, you have epics like the Iliad and the Odyssey. You've heard of these? Then in the very ancient world in Mesopotamia, there was the Epic of Gilgamesh, written on little uniform tablets. In India, the first epic is known as the Ramayana, which is a practical demonstration of the principle of the Vedas through the life of Lord Ramchandra. Clear so far? Valmiki was known as the Adi Kavi because he composed that first epic. No other literature in the Vedic genre predates Ramayana. And after the Ramayana, what you have is another time, thousands of years later, where the political scenario is extremely unstable. And all of that leads to a major war. And right after that war, another epic gets written, known as the Epic Jaya. It was known as Epic Jaya. Jaya means victory. It was written in about 24,000 verses or so. And later it got expanded, the same epic got expanded and was called Vijaya, great victory. And then it got further expanded and renamed Mahabharata, 100,000 verses. The Mahabharata gives the overall historical and political context of Sri Krishna. After the Mahabharata got composed, a second epic got composed that was an appendix to the Mahabharata. And the Mahabharata, by the way, is the largest epic known to humankind, with 100,000 verses. And till date, not a single person has been able to sit down and translate all of it in their own lifetime without help. It's really, really big. And there are some superstitions circling the Mahabharata in India. That in households, nobody keeps the Mahabharata together. Right, Tithai? I had a Marwari friend, and one day, out of our friendship, I gifted him a Mahabharata set. And his mother freaked out. And I didn't know why. And I asked him, what's going on? He said, wherever you keep the Mahabharata, there is bound to be conflict. This book is about conflict. I never heard that, but you learn something new every day. So the Mahabharata
has everything that you can possibly imagine. And the book Mahabharata says, whatever is in this book is out there, and whatever is not in this book cannot be out there. It contains all the knowledge that we possibly have, right? But Vyasdev still wrote an appendix to the Mahabharata called Hari Vamsa. Hari means Krishna, and Vamsa means family or genealogy. So after giving the historical and political context, then Vyasdev gave the genealogy of Sri Krishna. What lineage is he coming from, and who are his children, and what happened to his dynasty. After that, he gave the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was the third epic in that layer. The Srimad Bhagavatam therefore starts where the story of the Mahabharata practically ends. The story of the Mahabharata ends with people like the son of Drona, Ashwatthama, getting punished. And do you know the story behind this? The punishment of Ashwatthama? And then a lot of this will make sense. Anybody knows the story of punishment of Ashwatthama? Okay. All right, Mahabharata time. So during the battle of Kurukshetra, which lasted for 18 days, the Pandavas, led by Maharaj Yudhishthir, with Krishna as their main strategist, was losing. And the Kauravas were winning. And you know, there is a saying, everything is fair in love and war. Have you heard of that? So much of that characterizes the Mahabharata battle. For example, Ashwatthama was a dirty player. He would steal, cheat, lie, whatever, to win. And you know, when you're fighting and you have no moral scruples, you have a better chance of winning dirty. Make sense? Now, Ashwatthama is special in this whole story because his father, Drona, was the chief weapons person of the kingdom. So practically, the only person with knowledge of the most dangerous weapons in the kingdom that gave them power and authority. But there is a background to the story of Drona. When Drona was a little child, he grew up with another prince in the neighboring kingdom called Drupada. Drupada and Drona went to school together, and to make a long story short and make it simple, Drupada said, when I'll become king, I'll take care of you. You can have almost half my kingdom. Of course, he was a prince. He didn't have a kingdom yet. He was a kid. But Drona took that very seriously and applied himself and learned weaponry very well. When they grew up and Drupada had become king, his Drona said, okay, where's my share? And he said, what share? He said, you were buddies. And you promised that you're going to let me handle half the responsibility of this kingdom. And Drupada said, no. That was childhood banter. We shouldn't promise things when we are too happy, and we shouldn't, react to people when we're not very happy. Right? The best thing is to pause. And Drupada's like, I didn't pause. And Drona got very upset because of that. And you know what he did? He went to his enemy kingdom and said, I'm going to train the children of your enemies so that one day they destroy you. And so he switched over to the neighboring kingdom, that was the enemy kingdom, called the Kuru kingdom, and started training the Pandavas and the Kauravas in the arts of weaponry so that his neighboring kingdom, whose king he was friends with before but now enemies with, one day faces him in battle. And if you read the Bhagavad Gita, you will notice that Drupada and Drishtadumna are there on the side of the Pandavas with Drona and Ashwatthama on the other side. Now, Drona did not teach the children of the Pandavas and the Kauravas with a clean mind and clear motivations. He taught them with the ambition that no matter who becomes the king, my son will be the ultimate controller of royal power. And therefore, he kept his son Ashwatthama very close to the Kuru throne all the time. And he himself took on the responsibility of being the army commander of the Kuru dynasty during the Kurukshetra war for some of those 18 years. Now, what happened is Arjuna's son and Drona's son were all kind of heroes in waiting. Arjuna's son, known as Abhimanyu, had a special ability to remember everything that he has heard. So when Abhimanyu was inside the womb, Arjuna was explaining to his wife how to form a military arrangement that swallows the enemy up. And as you know, military conversations in a bedroom is usually boring. And so Arjuna's wife fell asleep. And it is said that Abhimanyu therefore only heard how to enter such a military arrangement but did not know how to get out of it. So during the Mahabharata battle, all of the biggest commanders, army commanders, created this military arrangement known as the Chakra Vyuha. And Abhimanyu, who was a 16-year-old boy, I think, between or a teenager, led the charge that day, entered that arrangement, and was killed by all his uncles and his father's teachers. And he was the heir prince. And from the Kaurava side, all they wanted to do was kill all the heir princes so that the Pandavas never get to the throne. Sri Krishna, however, had one motive, that whoever sits on the most powerful throne of the most prosperous land on this planet must rule by the principles of Dharma. And in Sri Krishna's and the estimation of other esteemed sages, the only person who was capable of doing that was Yudhishthira. The reason is Yudhishthira understood Dharma very well. And he would not grab onto power just because he wanted to be the king, unlike his cousins Duryodhana, whose father Dhritarashtra literally put his son in power because of nepotism. And the word Dhritarashtra, the first word of the Bhagavad Gita, Dhritarashtra Uvacha, Dharma Kshetra Kurukshetra Samaveta Yutsava, Mamakam Pandava Shaiva Kima Kurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra means one who forcefully holds on to a kingdom. So right after Abhimanyu gets killed and the battle goes on and things get really unfair, cutting a long story short, one thing that Ashwatthama does is that, he realizes that if I kill the children of my enemies, then they lose the motivation to fight a war. And the way he does it, who knows the story? The way he does it is he walks into their camp in the middle of the night while they were sleeping and chops their heads off. And that is a big hit under the belt. It's a no-no. You don't kill a sleeping person. It's totally unethical. Not even animals do that. If an animal is hunting, they will wake up their prey. Humans are expected to behave better. And so Ashwatthama killed all the children, and Draupadi was rabid. He said, "I'm going to kill this guy." And Sri Krishna came into the scene and decided that, for somebody who thrives on validation and power, dishonor is worse than death. So what Sri Krishna did is punished the son of Drona, Ashwatthama, by publicly shaving off his hair. Because for Krishna, the shame that he would have to endure for the rest of his life and the judgment that would pass on his character for the rest of history would be much bigger than a physical death. Because it is said that the lifetime of a human being does not end with death. It ends when their reputation ends. It's in the Mahabharata. So when after you're gone, you stay alive in the minds of people, even though you're not physically present, by the activities that you perform in this world and how you behave according to Dharma. So all of this leads to this particular chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now the war is over. The Pandavas have ruled for some time, and they have gone old. They have become old. They've gone to the Himalayas. They installed Parikshit Maharaj on the throne. Parikshit Maharaj has led a successful career as an emperor. Now he is about to leave because he has been cursed that he's going to die in 7 days. And all of this is over, and Vyasdev is now compiling all of this history with the lessons learned for people in the future so that all mistakes don't happen again. Clear so far? And that is the third epic in the period of Sri Krishna. No other avatara has had 3 epics written to their name except for Sri Krishna. And after the birth of Sri Krishna, he becomes the golden yardstick on which one understands or measures the qualities of other avatars. Sri Krishna is the only avatar, and he, who kind of took total control of the entire situation, but the specialty in him is that he never took himself very seriously. That's the sweetness of Sri Krishna. All other avatars, if you look at them, Narasimhadev, Parashuram, Lord Ramchandra, even Buddha, they all take themselves very seriously. Krishna goes and steals butter. You make fun of him. Somebody can insult Krishna 100 times before he reacts. So Sri Krishna's specialty is that he is able to reciprocate with emotions other avatars. And therefore the Bhagavata points out, Ete Chamsa Kala Pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. If you look at all of the avatars, Krishna is Bhagavan Swayam, because no other avatar demonstrates all the qualities that you can notice in Sri Krishna. That's why Krishna is separate and special and considered the source of all avatars, because avatars are not like, factory cakes, that there is no source of avatar like, that this person makes that person. Avatars are understood by their qualities. So Shiva is a partial avatar because he has certain qualities. Jivas, all of us here in this room, have limited qualities that also belong to Krishna. Therefore, we are sparks of Krishna. But Krishna demonstrates 64 unique qualities outlined in the book Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Srila Prabhupada summarized it as the nectar of devotion. So when you have time, please read that book and you'll get a sense. 2 minutes, just finish this and we will take comments. So what is happening at this point is Vyasdev, after having written the epic Mahabharata, after having divided the Vedas, after having created so many of the literatures, writing the Harivamsa, is depressed. Imagine the most accomplished author with bestsellers, one after the other, who everybody respects and who is an avatar himself, getting depressed. So if you're feeling depressed at any given point, you're not alone, you're in good company. Depression has its own function in nature. It is meant for us to go and reflect deeply about the condition of our lives and start grounds up. And I consider, I've dealt with depression, I've dealt with people with depression, I've come out of it with the power of Bhakti Yoga, and I can tell you this, that when people feel depressed, they feel very hopeless. But depression is metaphorically the manure out of which the flower of devotional service actually blooms. And we see that in the example in this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasdev is depressed. And what he does is he immediately takes shelter of his spiritual master, and probes deep within his heart, what is it that I have not done that has put me in this particular mental condition? Right? And when Narada Muni tells him that, you've written so much good literature, but you haven't described the juicy stuff, which is the life of Krishna, as it says, bingo, that's what I'm going to do now. And that is the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I want to pause here and thank you for your patience. I hope you enjoy the Mahabharata stories and open the floor up for comments, questions, conversations. You have your hands up.
So if we So Nrsimhadev and Ramachandra, comparatively to Krishna, wouldn't be considered supreme personalities of Godhead.
They are the supreme
Since they are avatars.
Huh?
Since they are avatars.
Yes.
And like Vyasadev and
Vyasadev
Narada Muni.
Vyasadev is also the supreme personality of Godhead. And Narada Muni is the supreme personality of servitor Godhead.
So how would we compare them to Krishna? So if there's Vishnu, or if there's Shiva and Brahma who only have a portion of the qualities of the Supreme Personality, how would we compare these other avatars?
I'll make an attempt to answer it a little unconventionally, if I may. Who's your favorite Hollywood actor or actress? Matthew? Matthew Mack? Interstellar. Okay. I've seen that movie. That guy. So has that guy appeared in other movies? But the one in Interstellar is special, right? Which one is the most special? Where was he at its peak?
I would say I like him just as a person. Okay. He was the minister of culture.
Perfect. But there must be one movie or one scene at least that's stuck on your mind forever.
Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused. Thank you. So it is very similar with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The personality is one. He appears in many movies. Sometimes in the Parashuram movie, sometimes in the Narasimha movie, sometimes in the Krishna movie. But his performance in the Krishna movie is by far his peak. And that one scene, Rasalila, happened in the month of Kartik, unparalleled. Nobody was able to forget it. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the same. But that one character he played out of everybody's name. And sometimes the same actor can play two roles as a cameo. Right. So that's like Vyasadeva and Sri Krishna. They're both the personality of Godhead. One is playing the cameo role of doing the Leela, the other one is playing the cameo role of writing down that Leela. But they're still the same personality. You get it?
Yeah. This is Oscar.
This is his multiple Oscar. And Sri Krishna, if you look at the Srimad Bhagavatam, was an expert actor and dancer. That's why he was very popular. I don't know if you noted that. Thank you. Other questions? Yes. Advaita.
In terms of the roles, is it the role or it's actually Krishna himself who is giving a full preview to his original personhood?
Is the personality who is now really opened up. For example, you don't have any baby Narasimhas. You don't have any baby Parashurams. But you have baby Ramchandra, Ramlalla. Because the Lord allows that kind of bhava for the devotee to experience in that particular role. Right? But you don't see Lord Ramchandra's mother chasing him around with a stick. He's treated like a prince. Now, Krishna is a prince, but he's chased around by his mother with a stick. And when he doesn't listen, she ties him up would be unacceptable in today's day and age. The Department of Children Welfare would be at your door. But even then, Mother Yashoda probably wouldn't care. Because that bhava, that exchange of love is eternal, and it's the personality that can exchange that bhava. So, fast forward, you have a repetition of the similar exchange of rasas and bhavas in the pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu also. The personality is the same. But this time, Gauranga Mahaprabhu is a sannyasi. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita is also an epic poem, mind you. That we are looking at a genre of epic poems starting with the Ramayana and going on to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, including Chaitanya Bhagavata and Chaitanya Mangala. Right? And Mahaprabhu is the epic hero just as much as Sri Krishna is the epic hero in the Mahabharata. And the loving exchanges he has with Mother Sachi is very similar to Sri Krishna's engagement with Mother Yashoda. Or Nityananda Prabhu, having that brotherly affection for Gauranga Mahaprabhu is exactly the same as Lord Balaram having that exchange with Sri Krishna. So the characters change, the personality remains the same, and the rasa is always eternal. Yeah, I mean, some movies have sequels. So Mahabharata, Harivamsa, and Bhagavad would be like sequels. The third one is the sweetest and the most intense. That is the Srimad Bhagavatam. In Chaitanya Lila, you have Vrindavan Das Thakur writing Chaitanya Mangala, which later became Chaitanya Bhagavatam. Lochan Das Thakur writing the other Chaitanya Mangala. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writing Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then before that, there was the Sanskrit drama, Chaitanya Charitamrita Mahakavya, Kavi Karnapura. So all of these are literatures that look at Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exchanging the same kind of rasas with his companions as Sri Krishna did in the Bhagavad Purana. So again, the personality is the same. And in Chaitanya Kaviraj Goswami says, Chaitanya Lilar Vyas Vrindavan Das. That Vrindavan Das is the manifestation of Vyasdev in Chaitanya Lila. So Vyasdev, who was there, right, the Bhagavatam, is again there writing, that Lila. And I don't want to get too esoteric, but here's another example. There was one Acharya called Bhagavat Acharya, who was a dear companion of Gadadhar Pandit. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar. So Gadadhar Pandit treated Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with reverence, affection, and service, just like Sri Radharani would serve Sri Krishna. He was constantly at his side, was constantly, looking into Mahaprabhu's well-being and comfort. And he had a disciple who Mahaprabhu loved hearing the Bhagavatam. And whenever somebody became an expert at something, Mahaprabhu would give them a name, calling them an Acharya of something. Right? So Haridas Thakur, whose name was Ibrahim, got the name Naam Acharya. That's where Acharya the Holy. Similarly, Raghunath Pandit got the name Bhagavat Acharya. And it is said that in Krishna Lila, Raghunath Pandit is a servant of Radharani who narrates the stories of Radha and Krishna to Radha and Krishna. And therefore, thousands of years later, when Mahaprabhu was traveling to Puri, he stopped at the house of this, undescript house of an unknown Brahmin. And for 8 days he said, please recite the Bhagavat for me. And he went on reciting the Bhagavatam, and Mahaprabhu practically acted crazy. He was rolling on the ground in ecstasy. He was singing and dancing and roaring, and he couldn't sleep, he couldn't eat. And at the end of those 8 days, he said, you are Bhagavat Acharya. And in the Gauragana Desha Deepika and other books, it is mentioned that all of these personalities continue doing service in their eternal moon throughout different lifetimes, because the nature of the service to Krishna is eternal. So Shukadev Goswami's service is to narrate, Vyasdev's service is to write. So each of their services are kind of indicative of their constitutional position. And this is the school of thought called Gaudiya Vaishnavism that explains that each one of us have a constitutional position in relation with the Lord and an eternal service that will manifest gradually as we deepen our sadhana and clear away all of the stuff that we are not, that is stopping us from engaging in that service. Yes.
Yeah, if there's so many different epics throughout history, like you had named Homer's The Odyssey. My favorite one modern day is Star Wars. And my question is though, then how come the Ramayana, it became a belief?
That's a very good question. There are so many epics. You also have Lord of the Rings. Have you seen that? Epics get written all the time. What's the difference between Ramayana and Lord of the Rings? The difference is Lord of the Rings is meant simply for entertainment and teaching human values. The same difference that you find between a football match and, say, a religious congregation. If you look at a football match, it has a lot of similarities to religion. And things like Marxism are considered quasi-religions, because when people subscribe to those ideologies, they behave in ways you would expect a religious person to behave. The difference is the hero of the Lord of the Rings is a Prakrita hero. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains this point, that rasa, the experience of rasa, can be twofold. Jara or Prakrita means material, and Chinmaya or Aprakrita, which is transcendent. The experience of rasa in this material world is always bound by time. Experience of rasa in the transcendental realm can only happen when time stops existing. So, the nature of time is to turn our idle minds to boredom. If you had very little work and a lot of time, wouldn't you be bored? So to cover that boredom, we create all of these things to keep us busy and entertained. Material epics fall in that genre. They will keep you busy and entertained for some time. You cannot live and breathe and chant the names of characters from Lord of the Rings. You cannot go Harry Potter, Harry Potter, 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 Harry, Harry. Try it. Won't work. However, you can chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Because when you enter the world of Sri Krishna, you have to suspend material judgment, material time, and through Chintamani, this subtle aspect of your consciousness that can be kind of experienced through meditation. You enter the world of Sri Krishna, and these epics are there to help you. Therefore, Ramayana is a sacred text, not just an epic. Whereas Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter are material epics because they raise a certain prakrita rasa, material rasa. There is rasa, but it gradually weans off. You cannot be in Harry Potter 24/7. It won't be even method acting. People will call you crazy. But you can be immersed in the pastimes of Lord Ram 24/7. That transforms you. So the key is a temporary transformation of consciousness versus a permanent transformation of consciousness that it lasts at least a lifetime. That when Lord Ram or meditation on Lord Ram transforms your consciousness, it stays with you. With Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, you get some values, human values. You can practice them in difficult circumstances. That's about it. It won't raise your consciousness that high. Was I able to answer your question? Thank you. All right, are we out of time? It's about time. Or you have more time?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the earlier mentioned great epics of the past. And I was thinking in that huge library in Alexandria that got burned down.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows
What was there?
what was there? Because the whole ancient culture, they rested on those.
And there were many libraries in, not just one. Like there were many libraries in India that were burned down during multiple invasions. Right? And that should teach us that knowledge is precious and vulnerable. And that should make us appreciate why Srila Prabhupada emphasized distribution of books. Because the more you disseminate, the more this pervades, the more you're working in your generation to preserve knowledge that might otherwise be very easily lost. Imagine before 1970s when Srimad Bhagavatam wasn't there in the Western world. If it got destroyed in India, can you imagine the loss to humanity? And therefore, the Goswamis of Vrindavan focused so much on preserving, procuring, and passing on sacred literatures because they become the shelter for humanity and helps them overcome disasters, both internal and external. Thank you for that.
Prabhu, thank you for your class. It's clear you have like a great deep knowledge of the Mahabharata. You mentioned about going into entering into Krishna's world, and you mentioned something about there's subtle aspect with Chintamani.
Chintamani, yes.
Yeah, what is that?
Chintamani Prakara Sadmoshikal Krishna, Brahma Samhita. Entering Krishna's world is the Krishna House program. When you wake up in the morning and you start Samsara Dava Nalaleedha Loka Tranaya Karunya Ganaganatvam, you're already entering Krishna's world. When you offer your food to Krishna before eating it, you've entered Krishna's world. When you go out and or you spend time, this is some of the best hours of the day. You wake up early and you discuss spiritual topics, you've entered Krishna's world. And then it's a question of gradual progress with time. But the process of Krishna consciousness is to enter Krishna's world and enter Krishna's routine. We are in this material world because we have our own routines, which is centered around our needs. The moment we realize that our suffering begins with keeping our needs in the center of all our world and our activities, and we are forcibly able to decenter them, put them on the side, and put Krishna's needs in the center, which is service to Vaishnavas, then our whole paradigm begins to shift. And this is not just exclusive to Krishna consciousness, this is the heart of any spiritual path. I volunteered many years with Mother Teresa in Calcutta. And she said that when you are able to take a step back and offer yourself in service to alleviate the suffering of others as your form of worship to Lord Jesus Christ, then you will experience happiness. And she was right. And so among us, you have so many wonderful colleagues you stay with. I'm jealous of your people. You're way more fun than I do. I've stuck with books and computers and students all. But day starts like 5:30 a.m. in the morning with meetings happening at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. But when you are able to, see all of that as acts of devotional service rather than something you do as for your career, then you are able to enter Krishna's routine, Krishna's world. Every person you interact with, whether it's a student at your college or a vendor, you realize that this person is a jiva guided by the Paramatma. And I'm grateful to have this particular interaction at this point. If you're in a position to pray for them. If you're in a position to bless them. But see them as parts and parcels of Krishna. And every experience that you are going through at any given point are designed, Advaita Prabhu actually said this very nicely, are designed for our inner growth. And so Krishna will create situations and send people at that exact moment as we need, because he's the Chaitya Guru, he's the Guru in the heart, who will make our inner growth a fact of life whether we like it or not. Okay. You wanted to ask something? It's good to hear. Any other thoughts, questions? Otherwise, your colleagues are hungry. No. When do we end? Okay.
Just clarity on what he said. So Chintamani in this question is referring to higher consciousness.
Chintamani, if you look at the Brahma Samhita, Chintamani, Chinta means thought. Chintamani means thought jewel. It's a thought jewel, which is a very esoteric way of explaining a state of meditation that gives us access to a transcendental realm that is right within us. And Kalpa Vriksha, well, let me take a step and say this. The Brahma Samhita is a book written on the premise that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Very simple principle. When Srila Prabhupada was new in America, somebody gave him a picture of Hanuman, and people came in and said, why is a strange cat's picture hanging on a wall? Right. And I've had people look at the picture and some of them and say, oh, that's so psychedelic. Right? That's the kind of hallucination you would have if you were like on drugs or something. But for us, he's a worshipful deity. When you change the way you look at something, the thing that you look at changes. Chintamani is the method through which you look at everything and you see the spiritual and the transcendental in it, beyond their material cover. Like when you look at a banana, in your mind, you're not eating the skin. In your mind, you've already peeled the skin and you're tasting the banana. The flavor of the banana is almost in your mouth. That is like Chintamani. When you hear about the pastimes of Krishna, you don't look at the external story. You don't look, you look at it like an object of meditation. And that is what we do every day in the Damodar Ashtaka. We look at Krishna's nature, name, form, and activities as objects of meditation, and it fully manifests in one's mind if we use Chintamani, that method, to understand it. A Chintamani also means touchstone in the Sanskrit language. So at a time in India when alchemy was at its peak, everybody was trying to find a touchstone that you would touch on things and it would turn into gold. And so they used that metaphor of the touchstone, Chintamani, as a pun, Chintamani, to give a method of meditation by which one could access the beauty of Sri Krishna's pastimes. So Venum Karanta Ravinda Dalaya Daksham Varahavatam Samasitam Gunasundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniyam Vishisham Shobham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajan. So what we sing during Dasharati. So what happens is you are using Chintamani, and now with the words in the Brahma Samhita, you close your eyes and you visualize Sadmasu Kalpa Tarura Vriksha. That means the trees that surround Sri Krishna are Kalpa Vrikshas, which means if you humble yourself in front of these trees in your meditation and you ask for something, and the only thing you should really ask for is how can I increase my love for Sri Krishna? That wish is going to be fulfilled. How can I get more service? That wish is going to be fulfilled. Varhavatam, peacock feathers. Kandarpa Koti Kamanya and Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasamrama Sevya Manyam. That there are Sahasra Sata, millions of Lakshmis. Means, you know what a Lakshmi is? She is the goddess of fortune. And the main Lakshmi is with Lord Narayana. She is a person who can walk into any situation and good fortune will follow. That's why in India, during this time of the year, especially during Diwali, people worship Lakshmi. Because it's the beginning of the year, they want money. They want Lakshmi to enter their house and good fortune to follow. It's a very big deal in India. But the Brahma Samhita says millions of Lakshmis bow their head down in service before Govinda because Sri Krishna is not interested in wealth, and therefore all wealth comes to serve him. And how does this Chintamani work? Premanjana Chudita Bhakti Vilochana. When your eyes, Bhakti Siddhanta says, and I love this English here, when your eyes are tinged with the salve or the ointment of love, when you see things with love, that's when the Chintamani is in action. That is the mental meditation tool. That now you're seeing, okay, it's not just food, which is an offering made with love. I'm not hitting the sack. I'm trying to take rest so that tomorrow I can wake up and serve because I love to serve. So Chintamani is that touchstone that transforms everything, and it is the tool of our thought that gives us access to the spiritual world. Huh? The alchemists were like the Prakrita Rasikas. They were trying to literally turn things into gold, and they just failed and failed and failed and kept going on. And now people have given up that attempt. They can make artificial diamonds, mind you. They can't make artificial gold. You can get artificial diamonds. You can compress carbon and make an artificial diamond. Artificial gold. So they try it. You have a business plan? It is said it can be made. Turn bell metal into gold from the customer. But I haven't seen anybody actually do it. Yeah. Don't try this at home. He used the TP to think about liability. I can keep going with your questions and answers till Prasad arrives. But okay. All right. Thank you so much. Always fun to come back to Krishna. I was away in India for 6 weeks, went to Kazakhstan. So, lots of horses.